You are listening to the Just Corrections podcast with your host, William Young.
Can we just get this show on the road?
One of the things that absolutely drives me insane about the correctional profession is this unrealistic expectation that we put on ourselves, that we put on our coworkers, that we put on the people that we work with about leaving work at work. And then we couple it, we say leave work at work and home at home. But I think that is ridiculous. I think that should be like outlawed. I think that it is complete and total bullshit. Let me explain why. I was sitting on my porch one day, right, just hanging out, kicking back. I love sitting on my porch. I have this beautiful front porch, and little did I know that when I built this house, my front porch, right in front of my house would be the community mailbox, and so I get to see and talk to all my neighbors all the time. And so my neighbor comes over one day. I'm sitting on the porch. I got my feet kicked up on a chair. My neighbor comes over. I love my neighbor. My neighbor comes over, and he is beside himself. He is absolutely beside himself. And at first I had to even figure out, I had to decide if I cared. Like, do I want to get into this? I'm sitting on my porch because I'm decompressing, I'm processing, and I really just want to be left alone. But he looks distraught. He looks like he needs some counsel. So I ask him, what's going on, buddy? What can I do for you today? And he takes a deep breath and he sighs and he says, the army worms are back. And I said, the army worms? What's an army worm? And he said, the army worms, it's a moth that comes from Florida that caught the jet stream and it flew and it's eaten golf courses in western Nebraska and I don't know what to do. And I said, oh, this is great. We're talking about an insect here. I said, what are you going to do? And he said, I don't know. I sent all the stuff down to Florida, and now I don't have the stuff. And by the time I get the stuff up here, it'll be a couple of weeks, and all the golf courses are going to be eaten. And I said, oh, no. So what are you going to do? And he said, I don't know. We had a sales meeting today, and the salesman, there's one guy that's still in the office that had experienced this once before, and I'm picturing this old, like, crusty, like, salesman cigar in his mouth, and all these dudes standing around with their Dockers on, and they're tucked in shirts, and they're all drinking their morning coffee. And this guy says, I haven't seen it this bad since 1987. And I'm just laughing inside. I don't laugh on the outside because, well, professionally, I've learned to shut off my emotions and become a complete, dead zombie inside. But I said, you know what, buddy? You're going to figure it out. You're going to get it. It's going to be okay. You're going to get your team through this. And then 20 years from now, you're going to be that old salesman. You're going to be the person that says, I haven't seen it this bad in 20 years, and we're going to make it through it because we're going to make it through because you're a hell of a guy. And then as we're talking, as I'm kind of pumping him up, motivating him, right, getting him ready to fight the battle of the army worms, my wife busts through the door. And my wife busts through the door, and she sits down in the chair next to me, and she exhales. And I say, in my mind, oh, here we go. And I ask her, I said, babe, what's going on? She goes, Karen didn't email me today. And I said, oh, no. Karen didn't email. She didn't email you? No, she didn't email me, and I can't do my job if she doesn't do her job, and I'm tired of waiting for her to do her job so I can do my job. How am I supposed to do my job if she doesn't do her job? And I said, oh, no. That seems like a problem. So on this side of me, I have army worms. On the other side of me, I have emails. And then my son pulls in the driveway, my 16-year-old son who works 10 hours a week at a nursing home in the dining room. And he comes up the driveway and I say, hey, buddy, how was your day? And he said, it was a day. And I don't know if any of you have 16-year-olds or have dealt with 16-year-olds, but they are, wow, there's something. And so I said, what does that mean, buddy? What is a day? What does it was a day mean? He said the ice cream machine broke. I said, oh, no. What did you do? He said, I got yelled at all day by residents because there was no ice cream. And I hope they get the ice cream machine fixed because it was a bad day. And so he's talking about the ice cream machine, and my wife's talking about the emails, and my neighbor's talking about the army worms, and I'm sitting here in the middle, and I'm thinking, I have a revelation. Have you guys ever had a revelation? And I thought, why in the hell am I not talking about my job? Why have I put this unrealistic expectation on myself to not talk about work? To leave work at work and home at home, because that's what I was trained to do. That's what they taught me to do. That's what they beat in my head at the academy. 8 in the gate. Leave your stuff in the locker. Don't worry about this job when you get home. Don't talk about this job when you get home. But everybody in the world literally talks about their job all day long. That's all people talk about. That's all they do. And so here I am, a person who works in an incredibly chaotic environment, who is surrounded by trauma, who has seen some horrific shit that would send my neighbor, my wife, my son to a therapist, to a counselor. And here I am just holding it all in, internalizing it, eating it until it explodes. Now that's not very healthy. So why do we do it? If we could talk about an ice cream machine breaking, if we can talk about not getting an email, if we could talk about army worms eating golf courses in western Nebraska, why can't I talk about the young man I did CPR on? Why can't I let them know that I'm having a bad day? Why can't I let them know that I lose sleep at night because of the things that I see, hear, say, and have to do? Why don't I do that? Well, it's because at an early age, early in my correctional career, somebody told me not to. They're still telling people to not do that. It's repeated all over the place, all over the correctional atmosphere. People say leave work at work and home at home. And I understand it, sort of, kind of, why they're giving that advice. They don't want people to go home. They don't want people to think about the things that they see. They don't want people to think about the job. But here's the secret. The secret is the job comes home with you. It follows you no matter what you do. And if you don't identify that, if you don't acknowledge that, it's going to get you. It's going to get you anyways. But to what degree this job affects you is dependent on how prepared you are to handle it, and how willing you are to accept that we work in a crazy environment and we see crazy shit, and that some of that crazy shit is going to affect you in your personal life. See, trauma goes where you go. Trauma doesn't respect the perimeter, the boundaries. If that was the case, when people return from war, they wouldn't need counseling. They could just leave their bad memories and their night terrors and their night sweats and their PTSD over in the battlefield, right? Couldn't they do that? If trauma worked that way, then somebody who was sexually assaulted could just stay away from the perpetrator, right? They could just move on to another relationship, right? And be okay. Trauma does not work that way. People carry baggage around with them, right? And we are no different. I know that we're superheroes. I know that we do superhuman shit inside on a daily basis, but even superheroes have their kryptonite. Even Superman had his kryptonite. So we have to acknowledge that the things that we see at work, the trauma that we endure at work, the atmosphere, the everything, it comes home with you. And people say, well, that's not what I mean, Young. Of course, Bill, that's not what I mean. But what I mean is you shouldn't be sitting on your couch saying, oh, shit, I forgot to give shower shoes to the guy in room 6. But we do. Of course you do. Because this job isn't just a job that you can shut off. Right? I've done it myself. I've been sitting there and I'm like, holy crap, I forgot to do this. And now I have to deal with it tomorrow. Or I'm sitting there and I'm recapping and I'm replaying the situation, the incident, the occurrence. And I'm saying, if I would have said something differently, could that have not been a fight? If I would have said something differently, would my partner have not got hurt? If I would have done something differently, could I have stopped that suicide? You should be replaying those things in your head. You should be talking about those things, right? And I'm not talking about going home, pouring yourself a glass of scotch and just drinking it away. I'm talking about going home and in a healthy way in an intentional way, processing, working through, talking about the things that you encounter with the people that want to support you. It doesn't have to be a gory work story. You don't have to give them every single detail about everything that you encounter, but they care about you. So let's start this. Let's try this. Let's do this. Let's start by saying we had a bad day. Instead of saying I'm tired. I'm fine. I'm tired. You know what? It was a bad day. It was a bad day and some shit happened, and when I'm ready to talk about it, I'll talk about it with you. But right now I just need you to know that I need a minute. I need a minute because I don't know how to categorize in my brain the things that I've actually seen, that I witnessed today, that I heard. I just saw something the other day. Over 18 years in this business, I just saw something the other day that took me back, and I said, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I am so sick and tired of seeing these things, of hearing these things, of watching things happen to people. And guess what, folks? That stuff comes home with me. And if I didn't learn to talk about it, if I didn't learn to work through it, if I didn't learn how to process it, if I didn't learn how to identify what pisses me off and what I need to do when those things start to happen, I'd be a wreck. I'd be a total wreck. You have to do those things, just like you have to keep yourself in a certain, physical shape. Now, some of those shapes are round, but you have to keep yourself in a little bit of shape to be able to do this job. You have to do certain things to keep yourself physically safe. When you're walking through the facility, when you're working in the facility, you have to do the same thing for your mental health, for your emotional health. And one of those things is to remove that expectation, to remove that from your vocabulary. Leave work and work at home, and home is total bullshit. You cannot do it. And so what it does when you tell somebody to do that and they get home and they can't do it, they feel worse. They feel isolated. They feel weak. They feel different. And they need to know that they're not different, that they're not weak, that they're not alone. They need to know that what they're doing, what they're feeling is totally and completely normal. So if you've heard that, if you've said that, stop it. Because it's impossible to leave work at work. It's also impossible to leave home at home. That's the other part of that stupid thing. Like, if you get in a fight 45 minutes before you go to work, are you supposed to put your boots on, walk through the door, walk through the scanner, and all of a sudden you're okay? No, you're not okay. You're not okay. You sit and you stew about it all night, and it's in the back of your head, and you're thinking, did I say something stupid? Or is this going to be the last time that we argue? And then guess what? You get called and you get ordered for another shift, and now you're stuck. Now you're stuck, and if you're wondering if you said something so stupid that it's going to push her into the arms of the army worm guy. We are human. And humans carry baggage. And humans think about things. It doesn't mean that we're weak. It doesn't mean that we can't effectively do the job. It just means that we're human. And so kind of my rule of thumb, guys, is that if you feel like you need to talk to somebody, you reach out and talk to somebody. It could be a priest. It could be a pastor. It could be your neighbor who sells fertilizer to golf courses. It could be a spouse. It could be somebody at work. It could be anybody. But if you feel like you need to talk to somebody, then talk to somebody. And do me a favor. The next time that you hear somebody tell somebody to leave work at work, to just forget it, to just check it out the door, I want you to tell them that William Young says that's bullshit. That's not how we do business anymore. I'm putting you on notice. That's not how we do business anymore. Let's not say that. Let's stop saying that. Let's start actually supporting. And instead of saying that, push people towards resources. Say, you know what? It's okay if you think about this when you get home. It's okay if you can't sleep when you get home. I couldn't sleep either. And here's a number of a person you can call. Here's a resource that you can call that'll get you some help. And I'll tell you what, I'm here for you if you ever need to talk. Because you're not alone. We're all in this together. And this job, this career, this environment affects all of us. All right, guys, that's all I got for today. Thanks for listening. Until next time, be smart, stay safe, stay sane, and we'll talk soon.